It's so awesome having a podcast and a community where you can connect and connect and connect and keep connecting, because that's ultimately what I think we're here to do, is to truly have kingdom synergy. And this incredible gal that you get to hear from today, Linzie, she was connected through another previous podcast guest who was also our breakout speaker for FounderCon in 2023. She was our speaker on the rise. And so you're going to hear the youthfulness of Linzie and how she has come to say yes to what God has asked her to do through her testimony, of course, he always does, using all things for good. She was a former college athlete with a background in basketball and, my favorite thing to learn about, rodeo. I'm like, what? And now she is training as a life coach and leadership coach for other people to learn how to achieve their goals, to have a healthy lifestyle, to create a life of resilience and confidence, and understanding that it all comes with faith that literally drives her yes to serve other people. She loves to serve female athletes. And so you're going to hear about this. If you're not a female, I get it. But if you aren't and you know a female, which all of you do, you need to tune in. Just understand that you can say yes today. You can truly operate from a place of confidence and optimism, and you don't have to wait for something to unlock in your life, but rather to have recognition and gratitude of where you are today. Since you guys have been a part of the Messenger Movement podcast for a while now, you probably know that I have a huge passion to bring your message and turn it into a movement. I see Linzie, and she is totally in the movement maker category, but I have an incredible ebook. It's a resource that's going to help you so much to be able to turn your message into a millionaire movement. Now, when I talk millionaire, you know what that means. It doesn't always mean finances. I don't think all of us are meant to be stewards of that amount of finances. I also don't think that everybody is meant to steward a 1 million person community, but I do think that our ripple effect, our yes, can have impact to people for generations to come, millions, in fact. So if you go to fitandfaithmedia.com, you will see all of the resources that we offer. But one specifically that I think is going to serve you is our Millionaire Messenger 10-part journey map. It is a 22-page assessment. Yeah, that sounds crazy and like a lot of work, but it's not. It's really, assessment is 1 page, and then you review it and you understand where you are. And then you have activation items to be able to say yes from your house. Literally, there's the whole section about how do you become a millionaire messenger from home? How do you do it from stage? And how do you do it from a microphone? And so I hope that it serves you. It's going to help take your voice and your vocation to the nations. So go to fitandfaithmedia.com/millionaire.messenger, millionaire-messenger, fitandfaithmedia.com, whatever. If you guys haven't gotten this because you're not doing it, look at the link below, millionaire-messenger, or just go to the website, fitandfaithmedia.com. You'll see an abundance of resources for you, all of which are free. You're going to love them, and I can't wait for you to get it in your hand. You'll also be able to go through some training materials if you get inside of the Resource Hub. Download the app today, Fit and Faith Network. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and here's Linzie. Calling all his mighty messengers to the front lines, to the microphones, to the stages, to the bookshelves, to the digital platforms, and beyond. This is Marketplace Ministry, and you are invited to join the movement as a messenger. I'm Tamra Andress, the one on the mic, but I honestly see it as a machete to cut through the lies, declare truth, transform narratives, and catalyze Christians like you and me to speak, write, build, and testify. I'd blow a trumpet right now if I could. This is a clarion call. It's not just time to rise, it's time to vocalize, unfiltered, uncompromising, unashamed, and undeniably bold. Together, we will turn your message into a movement, igniting global change, making disciples of nations, and touching the lives of billions by doing business God's way. This is not just another podcast to listen to and get stuck into a knowledge cycle with new information. It's an initiation into a transformative movement where isolated entrepreneurship is no more and the hustle and grind biz building is not welcome. We are operating from Sabbath rest and focused on sustenance, not success. Let's go, y'all. Welcome to the Messenger Movement. What's up, guys? I am so excited to be here today again with another beautiful guest who just gets connected through the grapevines. You know, Linzie, I have people who still are like, can I get on your show? Or I'll get random emails from a bunch of people who try to get on. And usually because of where we're at in the show, we're 7 seasons in, which feels bananas. It's a difficult thing to do. So knowing someone, it's a great way. And Lindsay connected through Faith Ann. So you guys have heard Faith Ann share here on the podcast before. I'll drop her link below, as well as she spoke at FounderCon in 2023 as our speaker on the rise. So you guys make sure you connect back with her if you connect with her in the past or you haven't yet. She's doing amazing things. We were just talking about her in a good way offline. And today we're featuring Lindsay. And I feel like there's a lot of symmetry in your all's youthfulness, the way that you're coming to the coaching industry. It's not something that's often exampled to you all. And so I'm excited to hear how you got into it, how your faith aligns in it, and amazingly, the interesting piece of utilizing your experience as a college athlete to now serve future athletes in the leadership realm, right? Like we're all leading in some way, and that alone is an athletic experience if you have a team. Let's get into it, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tamra. I've been so excited to have a conversation with you, and yeah, pumped to get going.
Let's go. All right. So I'm sure that there was more to it before college athlete experience, right? Before going there, because you had to start somewhere. So let's go back a little bit and talk to me about like your faith journey connected to your health and wellness journey and how that kind of catalyzed you to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a Christian home, which I am so thankful for. It was not perfect by any means, but very thankful for that foundation. But it wasn't until like my sophomore year of college where it was like just different things happened in sports and friendships, all of those things that, I was putting my identity in things other than God. And so I was thankful for, wasn't fun in the moment, but that growth opportunity to, have some of those things kind of taken away in a good way and, be stripped of that so that it brought me closer to the Lord. And, I remember I went to a Christian college for a couple years, and that sophomore year, I remember being in chapel and it was like, wow, this is really scary, but God, you have my entire life and my heart. And because prior to that, I had been, like I said, putting my identity in other things. And so very, very thankful for that moment. And from then on, it's always a sanctification process, always learning, but thankful for that season of this is what I'm going to direct my life towards,
Amen.
So
that's so good. I wish that I had that story in college. I just remained prodigal, even though the Lord literally was pursuing me. And, in hindsight, it's always 2020 of like, oh my gosh, he was there. Oh my gosh, he was there. And like just the revelation of that does bring me comfort and reminds me for my own kids' sake that no matter where they go, I know that the Lord's going to be with them and chasing them down. I just pray that they have more discernment and they open their eyes sooner than I did. But sanctification, it's funny, we're actually in launch week right now. This is literally my author copy of Before She Knew Jesus. And it's a story all about not like the prodigal season, but the sanctification, that word that you use that is about like the becoming like Christ. We're being sanctified today, right? Today and always, forevermore on this side of heaven. We're going to continue to have the uncovering, and God's going to ask us to walk through hard things, and he's going to ask us to let things go. And I'm sure if I really like sat and like, Lord, where am I putting my identity that's not in you? Every day I could probably raise my hand to that, whether it's to success as an athlete, holy moly. Like I'm sure that was a very easy thing. I think about that even for my son who's in jujitsu. He's a little guy and he's 11 years old. He's literally saying, but it's my identity. I'm like, hold on, that's not true.
Yeah.
So talk us through the evolution. You're at that point, and I think a lot of people can prescribe and ascribe to the concept of putting their identity in other places. What did that look like? What was that journey of sanctification continued?
Yeah. Performance was a big thing. And I'm so thankful. Like I said, I grew up in a Christian home on a ranch, and that really built like the strong work ethic that I needed to, to thrive in life and to get things done. It's so true. But from that, I think, whether it's things are said to us or that narrative we have, it was still like, well, I need to work hard enough to be valued. I need to perform good enough to be valued and to be seen as this person, this identity that I want to be seen as. So there was just a lot of like so much effort and work
Yeah,
that I thought I had to do. And that was not necessarily like my family's fault. I think it was just, that pressure I maybe put on myself. And so,
sure.
I love working with those, highly competitive women now because man, we can be so hard on ourselves. Or, it's like, man, I got to do this in order to get X. And so
Yeah,
it's great to pursue, purpose in our lives
mhm,
and meaning and all of those things. But when success of in our own identity becomes before that, becomes before building the kingdom, it's just like things get so out of alignment, and
yeah,
then we ourselves feel so um out of alignment with who we're actually called to be.
yeah.
And our identity is in the wrong place then.
Right.
So yeah.
And I think like, especially for, I can ascribe to one of those women, right? Like for a long time even
Mm,
just in my 20s, I was just very performance driven, very success driven, accolade driven,
mhm,
more money driven. Right. And
yes.
I was exhausted, right? Like you're so
Mhm, yeah.
overwhelmed and you feel like you're going a million miles a minute. And if you rest, then you're unworthy. I mean, you can't
Mhm,
just stop, right? Because imagine if you just like took a day off, what would that look like? And
mhm.
how would everything fall apart if you did something? And I know that that might, to some people, be like, that's exaggerative. Like, I really had a hard time with this, just kicking my feet up and not feeling like you're being lazy or taking a
Mhm.
nap, heaven forbid, and thinking like
I
something's going to fall apart because I'm asleep, right? And the world spins on my to do. And
Mhm.
how did that, and maybe even with some of your clients that you're engaging with now, that burnout, that overwhelm, those, and you experience it from a physicality perspective too, with cortisol levels and adrenal fatigue.
Mhm.
Have you faced any of that personally or seen others do the same?
Yeah, so, we'll start with personally. I hit a point of, just I had an anxiety attack, and it was like, this is so common for people, but it got to the point where I was like, man, I need to be changing my narrative, my lifestyle, like just different things. Like I was pushing too hard.
Yeah.
And and we know in business, like my husband and I run a business together, and I coach, and and like we love it. Like we've learned so much through all of that, but in the midst of that, talking about being misaligned, I'd hit a point of, anxiety attack. And it's like, whoa, what is going on here? I need to, change something. Something's got to change. Can't keep going down this road. So if nothing changes, nothing changes, So,
Mhm.
um, I remember a second night where I was about to like, wow, I feel like another attack is coming on. And so got up, read, did some journaling, and I don't always do this perfectly, but that night it was like it was such a clear flip. And so, going to clients now, I have a specific client right now who she is, she's an entrepreneur and in a very busy season of life. Like she is killing it. It's awesome. But she, last week was kind of putting pressure on herself. Well, I feel like I'm not like moving, or I'm not getting these action steps done that we had talked about. And I said, you know what? I think right now, the biggest thing is being intentional to grow through what you're going through right now and not just get through it or go through it.
That's good.
So sometimes it really is just taking that step back of like, okay, I might not be getting all these extra things done. But how am I learning from this? How am I going to adjust for the next season when I do have time for that extra push on something else? And so, and honestly, like the Lord has really been teaching me. I'm in my third trimester of pregnancy. And
Oh,
so it's
yay.
like, yeah, so exciting. But I've been learning that consistency looks different in different seasons of life.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
I would yeah, I would maybe be doing, pushing harder in some areas, but you know what? I'm going to be consistent in the areas I can now and push
Yeah.
for the things I can now and know that there is grace there and an understanding of what is actually happening in life and what I actually need to be pursuing. And so yeah, a little bit of just little snippets of personal and how
Yeah,
I'm trying to
and
help.
yeah, and clients, and I all the moms cue the laughter, right? When we're like, oh yeah, third trimester, this is like, you're about to get into the weeds. It's going to be amazingly blissful and
Mhm.
exhausting in a different way than you've ever been exhausted in the past. But literally, like, there's so much that concept of, are you growing through it, or are you just going or getting through it? And I think a lot of times we put our head down and we're just like, it's just a season. Let me just get through
Mhm.
this season. Or
Yeah.
it's just a
Mhm.
distraction, right? We'll like blame it on the enemy. We'll call it a distraction. We'll literally try to ignore it and get past it, thinking it's going to diffuse. If I even when,
Mhm.
and not if, when I pray, God, you
Mhm.
eliminate this. And he will. He is all powerful. He is
Mhm.
all knowing. And at the same time, sometimes I think the burning bush is literally there for us to take notice and adjust
Mhm.
and do something different and go a different route. And that's that growing through. It's taking the personal inventory and the analysis of the situation rather than just like, I'm putting blinders on and I'm just going to ignore this. Dum, 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 then it's all going to go away. And that,
Mhm.
especially as a mom, like, you're going to be
Yeah.
infused with so much information and new things that are going to happen. You don't
Mhm.
need to
Mhm.
ignore it because you're taking care of a human, but you're taking care of
Yeah.
you as a human too. And people forget that.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And, I like how you're saying that, you're taking care of yourself too. And that makes me think of like self-leadership in
Yeah.
the sense of like, I know, learning that in business, but then I'm so excited to learn that in motherhood.
Mm,
And then also, like being able to encourage my clients in that too. Like we're leading ourselves every single day, and how we lead ourselves impacts others in like a huge way. Whether we're leading a team or not, we are leaders.
yeah.
And so, yeah, just something that is very impactful. I know for has been for me. It's been
Yeah.
a shift for me, and yeah, excited for that learning process.
Well, and I think there's something that I had a revelation about recently, actually, Lindsay. For my podcast used to be called Fit in Faith, okay, for years. And FIT,
Yeah.
which you have an acronym, you have a concept of the grit equation. We're going to get into that in a
Mhm.
minute. When you talked about grace, I was like, oh, we got to talk about grit and grace.
Yeah.
It stood for founders, innovators, and trailblazers. And I feel like I'm
Mm.
constantly being asked to go first. Like, I'm constantly like, okay, Tamara, go out front. You're leading again. Go out front here. You're leading again. Whether it was like being the first to come to know Christ in my family and leading like your mom to
Wow.
Christ and your siblings to Christ. And that
Mm.
was really hard. And then leading your husband to Christ in a whole new sanctified way. And
Mm.
that is, I always felt like, gosh, Lord, like, why do I always have to lead? I just want to be the follower today. Can somebody lead
Mhm.
me? And so I was having this conversation because someone was like, Tamara, you're such a trailblazer. You just blaze that trail, keep going. And I was tired. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And so I prayed,
Yeah.
and the Lord was like, I love that you think you're a trailblazer, but I actually went first. Like, you don't lead yourself.
Ooh.
I lead you. And when you lead yourself, you
Mm.
are going to feel like you're in the thicket with a machete trying to knock the
Mhm.
path down. But if you are
Mhm.
following me, I've already paved the way. And it was like
Mhm.
ooh, you're right. And this just happened. So, like, this is a thing of sanctification where you're constantly recognizing even
Yep.
words that we use can deter
Mhm.
us from having the revelation of Christ because we're trying to do it in our own flesh, because that's what society is
Mhm.
doing. Everyone around us is.
Mhm.
So this is what doing it against the way of the world and actually following him looks like. So it was relieving.
Mhm.
I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I don't have to do this by myself. And it doesn't have to be as hard as I make it out to be, or it's perceived to be. So yeah,
Mhm.
I just wanted to drop that nugget as a revelation for others too. Like, yes, it's going to
Yeah.
feel lonely, but he's always with you and he's always before you.
That's so good. So much freedom in that.
Yes,
Yeah.
completely. So let's talk about grit. Let's
Mhm.
talk about that, and what does that equation look like for life, and where did this emerge?
Yeah. As I was building this program, it was, a lot of I'm thankful for coaches in my life.
Yeah.
So, in business, and I mean, as a former athlete, you were on a team, you had a coach, or whether you're an athlete or not, maybe you're a highly competitive woman who always strived for doing your best in whatever it was, and
Yeah.
a lot of times we had a guide helping us. And so that's why I love getting to be a coach for those
That's
highly
so
driven
cool.
women now. But yeah, so as I was building out this program, and the coach that I have is very like firm in her faith and was really encouraging on doing it with the Lord. And so the thing was, as I was building this out, I think when we try to do things, I know when we try to do things on our own, especially in business, when we come to a point of questioning, what in the world are we doing here? Why are we putting ourselves through this? If we have put our trust and really have sought the Lord in the very beginning, we can go back to those and back to that moment in those tough times of, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so without that, the enemy is just gonna keep pummeling us.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that word grit just kept coming to my mind. And so, I was like, we're gonna go all in with this. And so I talk about, the G is growth. And so it's not just about what you achieve, it's about who we're becoming in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Like I talked about earlier, whatever we're going through, how are we going through it and learning from it? And so that can be the foundation for the transformation from athlete to leader and just really growing through things. And then the R, resilience. And so it's the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. So, just not just staying stuck, but we're going to build that toughness and that resilience to move forward and be better in the future. And I remember, a time when I was competing in rodeo, I just kept placing fifth. And the thing, so you want to place top 10 each weekend. I won't go into the details of placing.
So cool.
But,
I'm like, I can't even imagine you in rodeo. I'm like, that's awesome. It's bad to
it's a blast. I just kept placing middle of the road and I was so frustrated. I talked to my dad. I was like, what in the world is going on? Like, I've got to get past this hump. And he was like, no, not that you can't get better, but you're doing great and just keep staying in there, keep sticking with it. And, by the end of the year, I ended up making it to nationals that year. And to me, that was such a great sign of that resilience to just keep going and doing the right things and not just well, this isn't going well. And just throwing everything, and just quitting. So 100%. I was really thankful for that. And then the I is intentionality. So purposefulness, how are we intentionally connecting with the Lord? How are we intentionally pursuing goals or meaning or fulfillment in life? All those things that we want. How are we intentionally doing that? So, and then T, tenacity, it's just the quality of being determined and, again, just that grit to keep moving forward. And it's interesting, according to Forbes, tenacity is it's this fierce blend between determination, persistence, and grit. And for leaders in their organizations, it's an attribute that can mean the difference between failure and success, or taking a team from doing all right to thriving. And so that's what I love to do, is help those former athletes or highly competitive women to go from meh, just life is just
Yeah.
And that's so, we can all feel that at times, but taking those, individuals from, I don't feel any purpose, thriving. So that's kind of the basis of what I teach from, and it's been fun.
I watched, because I found out that you also did basketball, for those who were like, what college sport did you play? Yeah. So basketball and rodeo, this is not your typical chica, cheerleading. No offense. I love cheerleading as well. But I watched the movie Sweetwater last night. Have you ever seen this?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, you have to watch it. It's on Angel Studios, and it's about the Clifton Sweetwater, who was the first African-American to get into the NBA. And he was a part of the Harlem Globetrotters back when that first started. And I found out that they actually plucked these guys out of middle Illinois farms, basically. And they put them and said that they were from Harlem in New York so that they could have a connection to the big city and they could play at Madison Square Garden against all of the white guys. And it was just such a cool concept. And to hear that and that evolution, obviously we know from a racial discrimination perspective, that was a constant pushback. But when the door was open, because he was so tenacious, like he had such grit and had vision, like I'm going to do this thing, which is, I think, a huge part of grit. It's exciting to know that we can break barriers that man themselves will create. One, because God is the only one who can give us that access point. We know this, but not everyone, most people don't have that tenacity, because the world just kind of suppresses us to like status quo, right? It's like right here is good enough. And maybe, like you were saying, that 5 is kind of where society like hangs out. They realize there's people ahead of them, and they're glad that there's people behind them. And they're like, I'm doing pretty well in comparison, because that's what we're doing. We're comparing ourselves to everyone else. I'll stay right here. I'm comfortable. And there's no comfort in grit, right? Like you've got to, there's that key, that little bit of like press a little forward, press a little forward, press a little forward. So I love that you gave that example, and I just wanted to share, you've got to watch that movie, but also like it really shows on like a magnificent level that anything is possible with grit. With those 4 things, especially the intentionality piece of that, man, I love the elements. Tell me about like an example of applying this grit, because this is also like a 90-day program, guys, that you guys can get involved in. It's a mastermind with one-on-one high-touch experience with Linzie. And also, I love that she honed in on former ambitious athletes, because I was there. And so we get this concept. This is not new news to us. You're not training me in grit. You're just activating it again as a 38-year-old mom who might have forgotten what that felt like to get in the arena. So talk to us about that experience.
Yeah, I really like how you said that, because, I talked to, in the same week, I talked to people and to women, and they were like, I just want to compete again, and it wasn't necessarily like I need to compete in sports again, but just in life, like get that fire back. And so, yes, that's what grit is about, is channeling that, that inner fire that we have. And two, like God gives us that. He gives us what we need to accomplish the things that he sets for us, and so, yeah, through that, it is so much of like just talking through, hey, how can we pull that out of you? How can we, in that intentionality piece too, of where I like to start with that in some ways is the morning routine. So we're setting our day up in the right way. And there was a season where I was like, this was a while ago, I was like feeling convicted on how I was spending my mornings, because I was rushed, I was overwhelmed, I was not prepared for my day, and I was not a great wife. And so, because by the end of the day, I didn't get those things done that I wanted to. And, I'm sure athletes or highly competitive women can resonate with the fact that if we don't get a workout in, sometimes like we're just not as good a person. And, I was frustrated if I didn't get it in at the end of the day. So, this is where accountability comes in. I was, asking a friend, hey, can you do this with me? I'm feeling convicted. I need to start this morning routine. And so that's where, I've built out a free guide that I'd love to share with your listeners too. But, how to start that morning routine in an intentional way. And it's not like we're starting 10 things at once, because that's where that overwhelm and stuck starts.
True.
If we don't be intentional about exactly what we're going to do, and starting small with the simple stuff, and we can build from there. But starting our day out is a great way through the program that we talk about, what are those things that we need to start out with, being intentional with the Lord. And then that way it just trickles into the rest of our day so much. Sure. We feel so much calmer and all of those things. And we can hear this over and over again about morning routines are great. But, as believers, I think that, well, I guess I'll, personal experience, if I'm not intentional in that area, or if I'm not, pursuing grit or, in a way that aligns with the Lord, then I don't feel like I can serve others best.
So true.
And that is not being purposeful at all. And again, going back to that identity, it will trickle into other areas of life. But, when I know my purpose is to, or why I'm doing something, hey, I'm doing this so that I can serve others better.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of the women I work with too, they want to make an impact. And so just through those different steps, that one-on-one, like we're being intentional to set goals and know that we can pursue them, but also know that there's intentionality in that too, that's not the end all be all. The end
That's
all be all
good.
is that we are following Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, there's a lot of layers to that. And like, I'm sure people have read
Yeah.
Atomic Habits in our community before, and
Yes.
knowing like
Yes. Yes.
the layering the small in order to have the catalytic exchange
Mm-hmm.
that we want and
Mm-hmm.
outcome that we want. As I process, like my morning routine had the most jolt when I had a baby, and now I have two. And so I encourage, as you go through that, you're going to have that, you're going to be exhausted, like in a different way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
now you're going to have a whole nother layer of like, okay, well, I can now understand why this person or this mom is having such a hard time here, here, and here. And the relatability of all of us as we go through any season, it helps us to have more empathy for different types of clients and different community members. And when I finally said, okay, I can't let the baby wake me up. Like, but the baby cannot be my alarm clock, because I would be so agitated. I would feel like, okay, I need more sleep. I need more sleep. And then the baby needs me to milk, right? It's like time for me to get on different farm life for you. It's the nursing life. And you feel like immediately you're being depleted, like the moment you wake up, versus if you start in a place of overflow and you have that space. Sometimes people will call this self-love, or they'll even perceive it as selfish. Well, I don't be selfish because X, Y, and Z. I don't want to leave the house and leave my husband here because then he doesn't get to go to the gym, or whatever that looks like. But it is from the overflow that we make impact. And so if we're depleted, no impact can happen for anybody. And so it's recognizing that for all of us. And it helps everyone in our vicinity, everyone in our sphere of influence is like, ooh, something's gotten into you. And you just turn that grit back on. And that grit is ultimately self-control, which is a fruit, right? So if we're looking at the fruits of the spirit and people are like, how are you so determined? How did you get that accomplished? How did you do this XYZ? It's like, well, I just stayed obedient. I stayed obedient to what I know my body needs, because God designed me that way. I'm a living vessel, and I want to be an overflow, not a broken, cracked vessel that holds nothing but complaining and griping and overwhelm and sadness and all the things that truly lead. And like you said, anxiety. Anxiety is where broken vessels like to hang out. That's like their zone. Depression and anxiety will linger if we aren't fully made whole in Him continually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like how you bring in, I think society can talk about like self-care or, different things. And there is definitely that line of like, okay, this is becoming,
Right.
a very selfish,
Obsession.
like, yes, an obsession for sure. But I really, man, I so agree with you that it's like, we still need to take care of ourselves though, so that we can, serve other. I love that. Yeah. Yep.
It's so, well, I agree. And I actually have a gal who's in the process of writing a book through Fit Press Publishing, our Christian publishing house. And she has something called the 180 method. And it's essentially connected to repentance, right? If you look at it from the stained glass perspective, but plain glass is called a 180. It's basically saying, okay, it's time to change your direction, which is the definition of repentance, which can sound scary, kind of like sanctification. And I process through like the ease, and she literally has a mandate on her life that is like, we are going to break down the self-help industry and turn it into like a loving Jesus, and understanding that you're an image bearer. And that's why it's okay to take care of yourself. That's why it's not just okay, it's critical. Because if Jesus himself didn't take care of himself, and he whisked away for time by himself. So where my solo date night girls at, or retreats, I'm like all for go get your own time in. But also like you saw when he ate, and you saw when he fasted, and you saw when he prayed, and you saw when he was with just a small intimate group of people, and when it was okay for him to be with the masses. And he demonstrated self-care really beautifully, and his self was always to serve. And so it goes hand in hand. And I think that's exactly what the grit method is teaching.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so well said. It's funny, we were just talking about that in Bible study. And I say funny as in, like,
Yeah.
God didn't plan
Like
all of this.
shocking. Yeah. Totally.
Just
Totally.
happened. No, yeah, that's exactly what we talked about in Bible
So
study
good.
was, yeah, he went away to regroup and
Yeah.
to be with the Lord, and so that's a good thing.
So good. So good. Okay. So you mentioned a freebie that you wanted to give the Hangout crew here on Messenger Movement Podcast. Where can I link them?
Yes, so it's the ultimate guide to make every day a success. So it's so we can feel more optimistic and confident starting our day, and actually feel excited to get up, and not hit the snooze a million times. And so yeah, they can. I'll share the link with you for sure so that they can get that. But they
Awesome.
can go to lindsay'scoaching.com and they can find it there easily. But yeah, I would love for them to be able to experience a morning that they are excited about.
So exciting. That is, like she said,
Mhm,
right from the beginning, start your day this way. Then you're not trying to play
mhm.
catch up from the moment you wake up and everyone feeling behind. Just so you guys
Yes.
know, for those who are listening and not necessarily watching or in tuned in that way, Lindsay's name is spelled Linzie. So Lindsay's coaching, Linzies coaching.com. It's the unique way. It's like when people say, my name is Tamara, and I'm like, nope, just Tamara. It's just boring. No extra A, no extra E. It's just the version that my mom got from The Price is Right. So I receive it. I take it as a name I identify by. So Lindsay, I am so grateful for this time. I can tell like your own tenacity towards what it is that you do and how you serve. And I'm
Mm.
prayerful that the community connects with you further. Even if you guys are following on her on social, you're going to get this type of information, this encouragement. And plus, you'll get to
Mm.
follow along on her journey of becoming a mama who has grit too. It's going to be awesome.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Tamara. I so appreciate it. Love what you're doing, and thanks for having me.
Of course. My pleasure. Bye, y'all. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Messenger Movement podcast. As you know, it is an utmost honor of mine to be able to come and do this work, to be able to edify and encourage and equip the church, which is you. You are the messenger that I am hoping will turn their message into a movement and ultimately evangelize and spread the good news in whatever way God has fashioned you to do so. If you need help with that, you know I'd love to do that as well through podcasting, publishing, and platform development, developing your business from the inside out. And there are so many different ways that we could work together. So be sure to send us an email at hello@tamraandress.com, or you can tap any of the links below the show. There are so many show notes, so many ways of engagement, and I can't wait to get to know you more. Thank you as well for just sharing this episode if it blessed you. And of course, leaving a review means the world. So you're amazing. And just know that you have wind at your back in everything that we're doing here at Fit and Faith Media and the Founder Collective. Love you.